Happy game day, Seattle hockey fans. We are looking for our squad to replicate perhaps a little bit of that magic that they had in Long Island. They're going to have to ship it up to Boston as they take on the Bruins. And make sure you stick around because you will hear and see, if you're watching on YouTube, a familiar face ahead of tonight's matchup. All that and more on today's game day episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. My name is Erica L. Ayala. I am your host of Locked On Kraken, also the founder of Black Rosie Media, where we empower Black women and melanated creators in sports media. You can also find me on the Locked On NHL show, where I host the Women's Hockey Spotlight and some of our short form videos on Locked On NHL that are about women's hockey. We have a game day. We're taking on the Boston Bruins, and we're coming off of a shootout win. Now, as far as commanding wins, dominating wins, that's not what we experienced. Philip Grubauer in net. Even Philip Grubauer's 26 saves, compared to 30-plus saves that we get from Joey Daccord, it was a good, solid win. It certainly felt good to get away from the loss column, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And also, Coach Hack at Morning Skate, after Morning Skate, kind of set the record straight about contextualizing the win and maybe some of the quote unquote lessons. Dave always has a way of zeroing in on a word that if he doesn't like it or if he doesn't feel it's applicable to his team, he'll flip that word around. And so I want to play you some of that from today's morning skate. Want to let you know, though, that today's episode of Locked On Kraken is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON, for $20 off your first purchase. You'll hear more about that as we move on with the show. But this is our final home game, our final road game before we head home. Our final road game before we head home, coming out of the break. What you'll also hear is Dave probably alluding to some rust for the first time, and that it took a few games outside of the break for the team to get over that hump. We also heard from Jaden Schwartz at Morning Skate, as well as Brian Dumoulin, and both of those two kind of echoing what Coach Hack had to say. But without further ado, here is head coach Dave Hakstol speaking to media after Morning Skate.
There's nothing special to our performance in a back-to-back a couple nights ago. We worked hard, we executed well, we stayed with our game throughout 60 minutes. So, it took us 2 full games to get away from the rust that we had off the break, and we got back to it in New York the other night. This time of year is really not about lessons. it's about playing to our standard, and night in and night out, we're playing against good teams that are, like I've talked about, fighting for playoff positioning, fighting for for what they are working for in their season. And you have to go out and play with purpose for 60 minutes. So it's not, there's nothing new to what we saw in our team the other night. We got back to it. We had better pace, we had better consistency and better execution through our game.
Dave, it was good to see Brian Dumoulin out there. Is he available tonight?
I believe he will be. We'll go through warm-up tonight, but I believe he will be available tonight.
So you heard Dave Hakstol also giving an update on Brian Dumoulin. He believes that Brian will be available. Again, we did hear from Brian, so it's just a matter of whether he will slot in and whether that's a medical kind of team decision or a coaching staff decision. I guess we'll have to wait to find out, but definitely a good sign that after going down in that game, I believe it was against the Devils, that Brian Dumoulin making his way back. Speaking of the lineup, just want to remind you what we saw against the Islanders, and I'm curious to see if we'll see any changes. One change that I've seen circling around social media, again, Coach Hack is not going to confirm anything about starting netminders, but have seen that it's looking like we're returning to Joey Decord tonight. So got Joey some rest, and we will likely see him as the starter. Swayman set to start for the Boston Bruins from what I've been seeing on social media. But the lines that we had against the Islanders: McCann, Beniers, Eberle, Schwartz, Wenberg, Burakovsky, Tolvanen, Gord, Bjorkstrand, Tomas Tatar got that game winner for us in the shootout. Ty Cartier, and Brandon Tanev. I said I kind of like that fourth line, putting Tomas Tatar there, maybe getting the other two, Tanev and Cartier, just activated a little bit more. Now on defense, we will have to see if Brian Dumoulin does slot in, but Vince Dunn, Adam Larson, Jamie Alexiak, Will Borgen, and Riker Evans, that Justin Schultz. That's what we saw against the Islanders. And again, I already mentioned expecting to see Joey Decord, but we'll have to see. That definitely will be something that we'll find out during game time. When we get back from a short little break here, I'm going to give you some stats and facts, and we'll continue with some notes and quotes for you before landing the plane, thinking about what we need to see, what is realistic as far as to show progress for this Seattle Kraken team. That's coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by one of our new friends, and that is Camino Consulting. How would you like to get to know someone better in an hour than you would in a year? Understanding one another better prevents small misunderstandings from becoming big ongoing fights. After providing more than 20 years of service to small and mid-sized businesses, helping management groups navigate conflict and onboard new employees, Camino is offering a digital seminar for families and couples. Did your Valentine's gift of tickets to the game not go over as well as you hoped? Get the couples and family online seminar for 25% off in the month of February using the discount code LOCKED ON. Again, that's discount code LOCKED ON for 25% off the rest of the month at www.caminoconsulting.ca. Or you can mention Locked On when reaching out for a business seminar and receive the first 5 profiles for free. We'll be right back with more about the Seattle Kraken as they head to Boston to take on the Bruins. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Right now, I want to remind you about Locked On Sports Today. It is the first 24/7 sports streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV Channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now, available on the free Fire TV Channels app. Okay. Want to let you know tonight's game you can also find on Sirius SXM, and you can always listen to Locked On Kraken on Sirius SXM if you so choose. And tonight's game, we're playing the Bruins. We're going to go up against a familiar foe, maybe friends for some of you in Morgan Geekie. We'll get to that in a moment. On the screen right now, I have the matchup head-to-head set by the amazing Seattle Kraken PR team. We mentioned this a few days ago, but the Bruins are one of the top teams in the league. 74 points in the standings, 32, 11, and 10. You can see that they are 17, 6, and 4 at home. They are 6, 3, and 1 in their last 10 games. David Pastrnak leads the charge, 77 points. Their leading scorer has 77 points. Our leading scorer, Oliver Bjorkstrand, has 40. Anemic offense. Anyway, I'll get to that a little bit later. 24% clip on the power play for the Bruins. We are at a 20.6% clip. 78.5% for the penalty kill for the Kraken, and it is better on the Bruins side at an 84.5% clip. The key to beating this Bruins team is really going to boil down to meeting success at a consistent level for how the Seattle Kraken want to play. We heard it the other night, whether it was Matty Beniers, Tomas Tatar, we've been hearing it from Jared McCann, Jordan Eberle, and if you don't want to listen to those guys, you hear it from me every day. We are a better team when we are active with the forecheck. We are a better team when we are playing fun and fast. The 3 Fs, fun, fast, and forechecking. We need to see that against this Bruins squad. They have pretty solid goaltending, and the Seattle Kraken, again, the offense is a little bit anemic. Sometimes that's because we're trying to be too direct and we're not getting the defense or the goaltending to move laterally and kind of get them scrambling a little bit. We don't have enough of a net front presence. Sometimes that's because we're holding the puck too much. Now, we also shoot into the body of our opponent a lot, which kind of goes to the first point, getting clear lanes, clear shooting lanes. And a lot of that is by moving the puck. We saw that goal from Matty Beniers that was set up by just elite level passing. The Seattle Kraken have those capabilities, but sometimes, and it happens with everyone in life, I mean, who among us, right? But we take shortcuts, or we think we can, let's put it this way. We're not a team that is overly skilled, where our natural or just really refined skill set is going to clean up mistakes. We have to play to our fundamentals. We have to play to our basics. We have to play as a unit to be a successful team. That's what we're going to have to do against a Boston Bruins team that right now, if you take a look at the standings, of course, they're in the Eastern Conference, but they're sitting atop the Atlantic. They have a plus 42. Jackie Robinson number, a plus 42 goal differential. We talked about this again the other day. They know how to create offense. That has been a struggle. That has been a struggle for the Seattle Kraken. There's no other way to put it. We are not that team. We do not play that way. We do not have the gift of goals, as it were. So we're going to have to put in some work. You know, I always like to look at the game notes sent to us by the amazing Ben Guerrero and Lindsey Brown. And so some of the trends, I think you know the trends when it comes to the Seattle Kraken. But if you're listening to Locked On Kraken for the first time, first of all, welcome. Hello. Thank you so much for stopping by. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and get those watch hours up for us. But the Seattle Kraken have to be leading in a game in order to, statistically speaking, win that game. We're not the comeback kids. For example, if we're trailing after the first period, in games, I should say it this way, in games that we were trailing after the first period, our record is two wins, 11-4. 11-4. Just 2 outright regulation wins when we're trailing after the first period. It gets worse When we're trailing after the second period, 118-3. That's not the case with the Boston Bruins. Again, they have 23 wins outright in regulation. When the opponent scores first, they're 9-8-5. When they are leading after the first period, they are 19-2-4. So they'll take their odds if they have the lead after the first 20 minutes. If they're leading after the second period, they're 24-1-5. 24-1-5. If they're trailing after the first period, now this is interesting. Trailing after the second period or trailing after the first period, the Bruins are 2-7-2. Tied after the first period, they are 11-2-4. Tied after the first period, the Kraken are 5-5-5. Tied after the second, 6-0-3 for the Bruins. Tied after the second, 4-3-3 for the Seattle Kraken. So neither team really plays well from behind, coming from behind. So just something to consider. Our shootout record, is 5-9. The Seattle Kraken, 76-89. Obviously, they're an original six team. They have a few more of those than us. When outshooting the opponent, the Seattle Kraken are 9-8-6. Doesn't really indicate with any certainty whether we're going to win. When the Bruins are outshooting their opponent, they are 13-0-4. So keeping up with the Bruins when it comes to shots on goal could be something that we want to do. This is a good team. This is a good team, and we're gonna have to get after it. We are absolutely gonna have to get after it, but I think we can do it. I know we can do it. It's just putting the pieces together. And I thought it was interesting, Dave talking about it's just a matter of getting back to ourselves. It's nothing nothing that was said or done. He's not making much of the meeting. And I think there's something that he's overlooking or that he's minimizing when it comes to the necessity for that meeting. That's Dave's way. I don't think he's trying to be deceptive in any way. But the fact that he and his staff could have that meeting, the fact that the team was willing to have that meeting and participated and leaned into it, hopefully will be indicative that they're ready to turn the page on whatever that funk was. Just not playing consistently, not playing up to our potential, and not playing smart. Have to play smart. We cannot get in our own heads. We cannot have self-inflicted wounds and expect to win against the Boston Bruins. It's just not going to happen. I want you to hear from Morgan Geekie coming up later on today's game day episode of Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at Game Time. I love using the Game Time app. I love being able to see my seats when I'm picking seats for sporting events. There's a big women's basketball game. Caitlin Clark might get the Division I women's all-time scoring record tonight. She only needs 8 points. I bet those tickets are wild. But if you happen to be in Iowa and you want to catch that game, I would go to Game Time. I get to see my seats, killer last minute deals, all in prices, so you don't have to worry. You can see what everything is going to cost with, any fees or whatever that are associated, the view from your seat, which I mentioned, and Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I've purchased tickets to see one of my favorite bands, Little Dragon, when I was in Seattle. That was super fun. And everything's super easy to use, easy to find right on the app. And you'll always have the lowest price guarantee. In fact, the Game Time guarantee means that you'll always get the best price. And if you find tickets to the same event in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110%, of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And a reminder, you can check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 streaming sports channel on YouTube. We also have a few models that are specific to cities. You can check that out as well. And you can find Locked On Sports Today not just on YouTube, but also you can find Locked On Sports Today on the Amazon Fire TV, free Fire TV channels app. So go check that out. A reminder, it's a game day, so you can listen to our radio team. They're already in place. They are ready to go for tonight, and you can listen to them any night you want on the Sirius SXM app. You can also listen to Locked On Kraken on the Sirius SXM app. I'm sure we're going to get some Morgan Geekie stories. And so, although I never was a member proper of the Geek Squad or the Geeky Squad or whatever you called it, I do think it's interesting to hear when guys are going up against effectively who they consider friends in their former teammates. That's the case with Morgan Geekie, who spoke to Boston media earlier today.
I thought we've, continually gotten better. We've obviously had a few rough games. I think we answered the bell each time we came out after a loss. Obviously, the game against Tampa didn't end the way we wanted to, but I was proud of our effort. I thought we responded well, and there's other good teams in this league too. So an effort like that, sometimes goes your way, sometimes doesn't, and we're just gonna keep building on it tonight.
What do you make of the Kraken?
They're good. Obviously, pretty familiar with them, but. They work hard. They play solid on both ends of the ice, and they can roll four lines pretty well. So they're a good team, but like I said, the way we're trending and building as a team, I think we're going to come to play tonight. Yeah, a little bit. It's been tough. We've been pretty busy. We expanded our family at the start of the year. But I was good friends with a lot of guys over there, and my wife was friends with a lot of girls over there too. So it's good. It's a great group of guys over there, and nothing but great things to say about them. So it'll be fun to go up against them tonight. I don't think people give us enough credit about how good of a team we can be, and especially with the team that these guys had last year. Just the way that we responded coming into the season. So we're building, we're learning every day, and it's still lots of fun to come to the rink, and the morale is good, the mood's good, so it's not something that we try to worry about. We're just going to play our own game and stay in our lane for sure. I play with Reimer a little bit throughout the year. He loves to hold on to pucks, make plays, and I play with Richie a little bit in camp, so I'm a little familiar with his game too. And obviously, he's offensive minded. You've seen what he did in Providence there. So, there's a lot of offense, a lot of, Richie's got a lot of speed, and I think we all mesh pretty well together. We got a little different taste, each one of us, so it's good, to bring that as a line and kind of mix things up a little bit.
Morgan Geekie. Now with the Boston Bruins, obviously the team overall on the season is doing well, but like any team, as you alluded to, I'm sure, in what Morgan was saying, they've gone through their struggles coming out of the All-Star break. It's always tough to kind of reestablish your footing. And like we heard from Coach Hack, Morgan was saying a lot of the same thing. This is a time of year where every individual team has their own immediate goals regarding the offseason. The offseason, but the postseason or the offseason. Some teams know they're not really pushing for a playoff run, so they can start thinking about the future. Other teams need to think no further than the game and the task at hand because they're still in a playoff hunt. And that's the case with the Seattle Kraken. We did win the other night, but we didn't really gain anything in the standings just due to the way the other games played out. We do know that with regard to wild card scenarios in particular, the Minnesota Wild will be playing tonight, and they're right on our heels. Actually, excuse me, now we're behind Minnesota in points. When it comes to standings points, we are at 54 points. They have 55, as do the Calgary Flames. So we're in that 6th spot right now for the wild card. Getting a win in regulation is huge for the Seattle Kraken. That being said, a loss outright is extremely detrimental. Points any way you can get them, especially if we can get a win. So this is a big game. It's a high bar, but these are the hurdles now that we have to be able to jump over. There have been times really throughout the entire existence of the franchise where whether we were playing a team that we were close to them in the rankings and standings, or especially sometimes teams that are below us in the standings, we did not show up with our A game. That has to be done for the season, and I'd love for it to be done just for the existence of the Seattle Kraken. I don't think that's very likely just because of, the human condition and the like, but it would be nice for the Seattle Kraken to commit to playing their best game regardless of their opponent. There's really no days off for the Seattle Kraken. We cannot afford that. A few notes that I sent to our Locked On Kraken insiders. If you want to be a Locked On Kraken insider, a reminder, you can text 918-731-3154. Again, that's 918-731-3154. Game day updates, latest Kraken news directly to your phone, and AMAs with me, Erica. Okay, so some notes that I sent over that I thought were interesting. Now, the last time we played the Boston Bruins at TD Garden was on January 12th, 2023. Martin Jones made 27 saves in the shutout win. That was the only time the Bruins were shut out that season. I was at that game, and it was very exciting. This is an interesting stat. Also, it gives me an opportunity to talk about former Seattle Kraken member Ryan Donato. Tomas Tatar scored the lone goal in the shootout in Seattle's last game against the Islanders to get that 2-1 win. It was the 13th shootout goal of his career and the 8th time he has scored in the deciding goal. He has scored the deciding goal in the shootout. Tatar's game winner made him the 4th skater in franchise history to score a deciding goal in the shootout, joining Ryan Donato, who did it twice, Marcus Johansson, that's a throwback, and current Kraken member Kyler Yamamoto. That was early on in his career. In the game against the Islanders, when Matty Beniers, Jordan Eberle, and Jared McCann were on the ice during 5-on-5 play, they outshot New York 10-1. So that line is buzzing. And Coach Hack had some really interesting things to say about Matty Beniers and his progress. I did not put that in today's episode because we're going to talk about Matty B tomorrow. I just want to get us through our games, but we have some things to talk about when it comes to Matty B, as well as when it comes to the wild card scenario that we'll get into. Eberle enters tonight's game having totaled 13 points, 4 goals, 6 assists in his last 10 games, and is 9 goals shy of becoming the second player from the 2008 draft class and the 30th active skater to score 300 NHL goals. Speaking of kind of milestones, Oliver Bjorkstrand is 2 assists shy of matching his career high of 29 assists, and Elle Tolvanen is 1 point shy of matching his career high of 31 points that he set last season. So those two, I'd love to see some chemistry. We have to get that third line going. That top line has been doing well for us, so more of the same. Of course, Pasta is the player to watch for Boston in our Seattle Kraken game notes. Player to watch for the Seattle Kraken I like this pick. Morgan enters tonight's game 1 assist shy of matching his career high of 17 points that he set in 82 games last year. His 18 points, 2 goals, 16 assists in 53 games this season ranks second among the team's defensemen, trailing only Vince Dunn. Morgan has recorded a career high 5 multi-point games this season. He's on pace to finish the year with 25 assists and 28 points, both of which would be career highs for the defenseman. So that's what we know, folks. What we also know is we're going to hold fast, we're going to stay true, and we're going to say loud and proud tonight, let's go Kraken. Not going to be an easy road, but neither will the rest of the season. Show us who you are tonight. A game, every shift, every period. Let's get this dub. We can do it. A reminder to be kind to yourselves and to one another, and a heartfelt just sympathies and well wishes to the Kansas City community and especially the Kansas City Chief fandom. Unfortunately, you can't it's unfortunate, I should say, that even at a celebration of very hard earned championship, that there are going to be people that try to ruin that joy and that fun. And I hope everyone that you know is safe. I hope that y'all are safe. The Kansas City Mavericks were supposed to be here in Tulsa. It was, I believe, a mechanical issue in Tulsa, not related to what happened in Kansas City. But we hope that everyone from the Kansas City Mavericks community is also safe and feeling okay. We're thinking about you and anyone else that's experiencing, unfortunately, some tragedy at the hands of gun violence in particular. That's our show today, folks. I thank you always for tuning in, and I will catch you on the next episode. Enjoy the game. Erica L. Ayala signing out.